In the last 4 decades, 4 men from the United Kingdom have won the World's Strongest Man. Jeff Capes, Jamie Reeves, Gary Taylor, and myself, Eddie Hall. This is my story.
For Englishman Eddie Hall, becoming the world's strongest man was a lifelong ambition. 3 of the strongest men in history battled out an emotional final in Botswana. For the runner-up, Iceland's Hafþór Björnsson, losing by a single point was too much to bear.
Once in my life, my daughter was taken away from me, and it felt almost like that. My heart was just taken out. Thank you.
For the first time, Eddie beat the other giant in the competition, the defending champion and 4-time world's strongest man, Brian Shaw, who finished only 3 points back in 3rd place.
I don't ever want to step foot in the gym again. I honestly don't. Life since winning the World's Strongest Man has completely changed. You know, I went from being a man who would spend every living second obsessed with becoming the World's Strongest Man. Eating, training, sleeping, recovery, non-stop, 365 days a year. To a man who can now enjoy life.
World's Strongest Man's in the house, baby!
Life will never be the same for the affable 29-year-old from Stoke-on-Trent in England. The man affectionately known as the Beast has received great attention since being crowned champion on the event's 40th anniversary. However, the 10 years he has dedicated to the sport have come at great cost.
The training has been tough. It's been so harsh on my body. And doing it when I'm in training, doing those reps, I'm doing the squats, the deadlifts, the bench press, running with yokes, lifting out the stones. When my body wants to give up, when my back's burning, my legs are on fire, my lungs are hurting, I can't breathe, I go dizzy, I pass out. But I had to do it. I had to be the world's strongest man. I couldn't have died a proud man. I couldn't look in the mirror every day and see its success unless I won the world's strongest man. What keeps me going? To be the best. To be the Superman of the world. To everyone. I remember when I was 19 years old and I did my very first strongman contest, and that's when I got the bite for it. From day one, since my very first competition, I wanted to be the world's strongest man, and that's been my #1 goal.
Since his debut at world level, it's been a tough climb for Eddie Hall. He gained valuable experience in the group stages in 2012 and 13. He fought his way to a 6th place finish in 2014 and a top 4 finish in Malaysia 2015. Would 2016 be his year? He dislocated his fingers on the eve of the finals, but still finished in 3rd place. It has been a long, hard journey for the Beast.
2013, I was in the last event, in the lead. I needed to get so many stones to get through to the final. And I think I fumbled my 3rd or 2nd stone, and that cost me. 2 people overtook me, and I ended up coming 3rd in the group, half a point behind 2nd place. Just missing out qualifying for the final that much. I suppose these things have to happen. They have to happen because they make you a better person, they make you a stronger person, and they put the fire in your belly even more. You've got to have failures along the way, and then you learn from those failures and you improve and get better. In 2014, I lifted a world record deadlift. I matched Benny Magnusson, 461 kilos. The rules were you had to lower the weight, and I dropped the weight and excitement to celebrate with the crowd. Now, this was a very tough time for me, a very hard period in my life, because I'd achieved what many considered to be the greatest feat of strength in the world, and then I got it taken away from me. Now, this was a very massive part of my career, because it was the flick switch moment for me to go professional, you know, because I came home that weekend and I literally quit my job on the Monday. I didn't go back to work because I believed in myself so much. So it was that weekend that put the fire in my belly, and I finally handed my notice in my job, and that was it. I was a pro strongman. World's Strongest Man was going to be mine from that day onwards.
A year later in Malaysia, Eddie began to show the form he'd need to compete against the giants. This, the head-to-head with Hafthor Bjornsson in the Atlas Stones.
This is amazing. Hall's ahead of Bjornsson.
This is a great performance from Hall. Look, he's up to number 5. Can he do it?
Enormous circumference, this stone. My goodness!
This is amazing. Britain's Eddie Hall. 5 stones. Do we have a new king of the stones?
In the end, the Icelander would beat him to the podium. But in Malaysia, the strongman world had witnessed a colossal new rivalry.
In 2016, World's Strongest Man, I came into the competition feeling invincible, feeling on top of the planet. I'd already won it in my head. And then, tragedy. You know, we had a familiarisation day the day before World's Strongest Man started, where you could feel the kit. And there's just one barrel I didn't like the look of, so I picked it up to throw it over my shoulder and overstretched my finger, dislocated 2 fingers, and completely detached the volar plates ligaments in my middle finger. Basically, I had no grip power whatsoever, and that to me was the end of that World's Strongest Man. I was no chance on this planet. I was going to win World's Strongest Man with one hand. Ended up coming third, the 3rd strongest man in the world with one hand. But that was more confidence building for myself, you know. The fact I can become the 3rd strongest man on the planet, one-handed. I knew next year, fully fit, 2 hands, that title was mine.
After becoming the world's strongest man in 2017, Englishman Eddie Hall retired from competition at world level. The first champion from Britain for 24 years, he's enjoyed all the attention and the opportunity to promote brand Beast. The battle in Botswana had begun against an Icelander, Ari Gunnarsson, and one of the new stars, Poland's Mateusz Kieliszkowski.
So the first event in the heat was the load and drag. Now this is an event for me that I thought I was going to do very well in because of my body weight. It turned out I came 4th.
He might look like a short man, Eddie Hall, but he's actually 6'3". He's just nearly 190 kilos of dense muscle, and that should put him in good stead here. But Gunnarsson using those big guns of his to pull it along. Who's going to get this one?
8:03 to beat. And we will see how close Gunnarsson came. Eddie Hall doesn't know when to give up, does he?
Selective hearing.
Mateusz Kieliszkowski was in my group. He was the one I'm most worried about. He came last on the first event, which was, to me, as long as I was ahead of him of every event, I was still going to come in first in the group going into the final. And that was all I needed to do. Make sure going into the final I was in the #1 spot. In the log press, in the heats, me and Kieliszkowski went head-to-head. I think it was 160 kilo log for reps. Now, I had the fitness, I had the conditioning, and I obviously had the strength. I just needed to do just enough to win the event. You know, I didn't want to time myself out. I didn't want to do 10 reps when I only needed to do 6.
I mean, look at Hall. He looks so steady under that. Once it's to the shoulders, just leans back.
Pushing it up, locking out. That's 6.
Kieliszkowski's going to match him. Is he going to do one more then, Eddie? Kieliszkowski might do one more as well. He looks fitter.
Well, here we go. This is where his competitive spirit really kicks in. He doesn't just want to match Eddie. He wants Eddie to stop. No more time in it, though.
Eddie won't have enjoyed that. He was pushed harder than he wanted to be, and he only got a draw.
7 reps apiece.
It was a tough event, you know, very tough, but we shared points. But again, for me, as long as I'm ahead of him, which I was on the points by the end of that event, that's what was all that was important to me. I was trying to conserve energy. I didn't want to go all out, do 10 plus reps and waste a load of energy, kill myself for the next event. You've got to be very smart in the heats. You've got to conserve your energy. You want to be as fresh and as energetic as you can for the final. I went out as hard as I could on the first 4 events, and then the 5th and 6th I did pretty much nothing. I think the 5th event I did 2 gold bunions, just enough to get a couple of points just to stay in the lead.
He stopped.
Really?
Well, that's put him into the grand final. He's going to be very professional here.
Because of that, I didn't have to do the last event, which was massive, absolutely massive. You know, not being able to do 100 kilo Atlas stone over a yoke for 20 reps like some of the other guys were doing, that made sure that I was super fresh for the final. You know, if I had to do 20 reps of an Atlas stone 2 days before the World's Strongest Man final, I don't think I'd be in the same state I was. Brian Shaw, Forber Johnson, 6'9", 6'10", 34, 35 stone in body weight. Everyone thought they were unbeatable because of their sheer size. I proved those people wrong. I did beat them through sheer determination. The World's Strongest Man is the toughest competition on the planet. Not only have we the most brutal, biggest, most fierce competition there is, we've also got a lot of stress building around World's Strongest Man. You know, we've got to fly out thousands of miles away from home. We've got to do numerous medical and TV interviews. After every single event, you've got a camera and a microphone in your face. Whether you've won the event, whether you've lost the event, you've always got to get that interview. There's a lot of bus journeys to get to the locations. The World's Strongest Man's a very stressful time. You've got to be very strong-minded to let it not affect you. You know, you've got to keep getting your fuel in, your food and drink, and you've just got to take it in your stride, really. You know, you're all in the same boat, but it is tough. There's a lot more go on than just doing events and then sitting back in a tent. There's a lot more that goes into World's Strongest Man. Waking up for any competition on the morning is very nerve-wracking. But then you come to World's Strongest Man and those nerves go up a notch because you're not competing for an average title. You're not competing for a British title or a European title. This is the most alpha male title in the world. And the nerves are rife throughout the whole competition. You know, if one athlete said they weren't nervous, they're lying. Everyone's nervous. It's just about how you control those nerves. You've got to really be mega strong-minded to go into a final and keep your composure. This year the tyre flip was 1/2 ton. You know, this thing was massive. This thing is the most ridiculous tyre I've ever seen in terms of a flip contest. I don't think anyone was prepared for that. You know, that tyre was very, very hard to grip, very hard to flip. And most of all, it was heavy. You know, you had to be very strong and have great endurance. It didn't go that great for me. You know, I trained it hard, but I trained on a completely different tyre. We were all in the same boat, but I just couldn't get to grips with the tyre, you know, the 2 days beforehand we were there.
3 men almost in a row here.
Look at that.
Definitely Shaw's.
It is what it is. You know, I didn't do very well. I came 5th, I believe, on the first event. But I knew I could claw it back, so it wasn't the end of the world. Brian Shaw won, I think 4 was 2nd. You know, Brian was shouting and growling at everybody, very dominant in the area. And, you know, I knew he was going to do that. If he won the event, I knew he was going to be obnoxious, arrogant, and try and put the other guys off. I didn't let it bother me at all. I just thought, hey, that's 1 event down, there's 5 more to go. That was my worst event. Once the tyre flip had been and gone and I learned that I'd come 5th, I must admit I was very disappointed. I thought that may have cost me the title. You know, I had in my head before I came to World's Strongest Man, I've got to stay in the top 3 on every single event to win the Worlds, and the very first event I came 5th, so that was very worrying.
Next up, the brutal 350-kilogram squat lift, a raw analysis of leg power, one of strength sport's ultimate tests.
So the squat event for me went okay. You know, I expected around 20 reps from what I was doing in training. I think I did 16 reps in total. I was disallowed 1, which is fair enough. Referee's decision always stands. But 15 reps. Coming off the back of that, I must admit, you know, I was worried. It's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to hit 20 reps. And when I was stood there watching the rest of the opposition go, you know, I was seeing guys doing 12 reps, 11 reps, 13 reps. And we still had 4 and Brian to go. You know, I was literally head in hands at one point thinking, geez, if these guys even come second with 14 reps, they're going to get a lot of points on the other guys. Luckily, that didn't happen. You know, I think 4 that did 12, Brian did 13. Joint second and third with a lot of other guys, put me in the lead, or just behind the lead, on the points, which is just what I needed. Brian seemed to go very slowly on his squats. I don't know why that is. Maybe he's just been very cautious.
I've never seen anyone run out of 60 seconds in a squat. It's never happened before.
I mean, it's very easy to lose your balance of that squat bar. You know, it doesn't rotate, it can throw you forward, throw you back. So I suppose it's very sensible of Brian. That's what Brian is. He doesn't take any risks. He doesn't make mistakes. But he did make one mistake, and that is he ran out of time.
The reigning champion, Brian Shaw, disappointed, but showing great sportsmanship. With this result, Eddie now within 1.5 points of the American.
So after the squat event, I believe I was just behind the lead. But I knew what events were coming up, and they were very good for me. I had the Viking Press, which I knew I could win. The plane pull, which I know I'm very good at. The Atlas Stones, which I also know I'm very good at. But my best event, the one that nobody can touch me on, is the max deadlift. 4 paid some very good tactics this year. Going into World's Strongest Man, he bought a load of T-shirts, a load of flags, handed them out to the crowds so everyone would support him. But that's exactly what 4 is. You know, he's a yes man. He surrounds himself with yes men. He's got a huge group around him that do exactly what he say, tell him he's great, tell him he's awesome, tell him he's amazing, tell him he's gonna win it. And that is the worst thing you can have around you. You need reality. And that's exactly what I had. I had one person with me this year come to World's Strongest Man, and that was my physio, Richard Sale. That's all I needed, just one man. There's no point having yes men around you. Fake fans, that's exactly what they are. So the Viking Press, I was going out last. I sat there and watched 4's reps, and there must have been at least 3 or 4 where I was like, they shouldn't have been given.
You also have to hold it up there for the right amount of time, and you can't double dip. That's another item in Viking Press. In other words, you can't bend your legs a second time.
Obviously, the last one, the very, very last rep he did, wasn't allowed because it was appalling.
No, double dipping with knees.
4's been renowned in the past for double dipping, bending his legs, really leaning back with his bent legs and then straightening his legs. He was told him from realization day, the day before World's Strongest Man, you can't do this. You know, a lot of the athletes moaned about it, especially Brian.
I mean, we're all the best right here. And you know if you double dip. You know it.
When it comes to rep events, I always kind of err on the side of the athlete with a warning. So just to kind of give you a chance if you lose your mind in the heat.
And 4 was very happy with his result. You know, I remember 4 coming away from that, celebrating with the crowd, giving everyone high fives, hugging his teammates, really happy.
Unbelievable.
And I thought, geez, you know, that's a good number. I went out to the referee. How many reps has 4 got? 14 reps. Right. So I need to do 15 reps for the win? Yes, Eddie. So I went out and did 15 reps.
I imagine he'll blitz through these now.
15 seconds. That's 13 reps. That's 14 reps. One more, Eddie.
And that's that.
I could have done more. Easily could have done another rep. Could have done 16. It wasn't until this point, once I'd done my 15 reps and won the event, that 4 came out with all his Icelandic crew. and decided that his last rep should have been allowed after I went. So this then put a lot of pressure on the referees, or put a lot of pressure on me. Thor was trying to get his result changed. I was sitting there very worried because I had no control over the situation. If they'd have given Thor that extra point, that would have put us on joint points. But then that would have been unfair on me because I can't go out and do it again. If he'd have come out straight away after he'd done his lift and said, you know, come on, you should have given me that 15 rep, then I would have sat there and been totally fine with that. I think that just the way Thor handled the situation was very poor. But in all honesty, I think all he's done is done himself damage.
And let's have 3 other referees look at it, and they all say, let's just double it. That's fine.
Dude, I had 3 referees. I had myself, him, and Darren, all referee.
You're the guy who's making the decision.
I'm the guy who makes the decisions, and therefore I gave you 3 reps that were bad because I warned you, and I gave you 1 off. I'm sorry.
It's not a game of cards, Thor. You can't slip an ace in. We're in front of cameras, we're in front of people, we've got real weights. It's A to B, it's strongman. You got beat in a strongman game and you can't take it, that's all there is. You know, I knew that this was a turning point in the World's Strongest Man. You know, I just won the 2nd event and I needed those points. I think this put me in the lead going into day 2 by half a point. But I knew the next 3 events after that I could nail. So, you know, it was a great feeling when you say you're going to do something, but when you actually achieve it, it is a great, great feeling.
This is the year.
No doubt this is the year.
No doubt, man. This is Eddie Hall's year. It's now or never. Now or never.
What's the next big thing? What's the next photo on your dashboard?
In all honesty, a big, big, big dollar sign. You know? The thing is, I've chased a dream.
All yours.
Yeah. I've chased a dream for so long in the hope that it brings me just ease off everything. You know, it cures all my problems. It was the way out of working a 9 to 5 till I'm 65. I've got to capitalise on the title. I've done the damage to my body. I've done 10 years of beating myself up. I've taken decades off my life. Now it's up to me to make the most of the years I've got left and make sure my family is set up, most importantly.
Eddie has been making the most of being the world's strongest man. He took on world heavyweight boxing champion Anthony Joshua. The title at stake, the London Marathon.
Since winning the World's Strongest Man, I've been mixing with the greats. I spent a day with Anthony Joshua. We did a marathon of games. One of the most alpha males on the planet, Anthony Joshua. We did a whole day of games. We did Jenga. We did swing ball. We did Connect 4. Rock, paper, scissors.
Begin.
We had a whole day of fun, and I beat the man.
Day 2 in Botswana, the dawn of the new Superman. At the halfway point in the competition, only half a point separated Eddie Hall from Brian Shaw, with Thor a further 2 points back. The athlete's biggest test still to come.
So the plane pull, we had to get up mega early. I think we had to get up at 5 a.m. in the morning to get to the airport for 6:30, for the plane pull about 7:30. To do a plane pull that early in the morning was pretty horrible. You know, and this plane landed. It came in out of nowhere, this huge commercial plane. Got it all in position, set it all up, put a harness on it, and that was it. Right, come on lads, let's get it done. The plane pull, traditionally, the bigger you are, the taller you are, the heavier you are, the better you are at this event. Although the plane and truck pull is one of my best events, it's also one of the events that can go horribly wrong, because I've got to rely on brute power. I've got to rely on brute arm power, brute leg power, because I haven't got the levers, I haven't got the weight that some of the guys have got. So this was an event where I knew I could do well, but everything had to go perfect.
Then came the surprise of this year's final, the turn of the lightest man in the competition.
Kaliskowski went out on the plane pole and did a phenomenal time. He ended up winning the whole plane pole event, and I think he shocked everyone. You know, he was one of the lightest guys there on that day, but he was so athletic. You know, so tall, so nimble. I think at one point his nose was touching the floor. He was that low. You know, he was so low to the ground, like a bullet. You know, they were arrow straight. There was no mistake done from Kaliskowski. That's why he won the event. No mistakes.
Look how low he is. Those little tiny wheels cross in 40 seconds.
Wow. That is an incredible time. Not just for Kaliskowski, but an incredible time overall.
Luckily, I was last, and I watched everyone go. And it wasn't until I saw Kaliskowski pull the plane that I realized that you had to be arrow straight, otherwise it would cause resistance on the front of the plane. Now, I watched Brian Shaw go, and Brian pulled it very upright, very sway, very hippie, and the front of the plane, the front wheel was flapping all over the place, causing it to slow down. It was a big shock to everyone, I think, because everyone expected Brian to win that event, or if not win it, come second. So I think Brian came 5th on the plane pole, and that's what cost him. That's where he lost all his points. And because I watched this, compared Brian's pole to Kaliskowski's pole, I realized that no matter what, I cannot start swaying. I cannot use my hips. So when I went, it taught me to keep my body dead straight, arrow straight. Everything had to be central, and that's what stopped my wheel from flapping left to right, creating less resistance. So it was a very big advantage going last on the plane pole. I think if I hadn't gone last, I don't think I'd done as well as I'd done. Thor went out on the plane pole and came second. You know, he was very happy with his time. He was, again, celebrating with his yes men, very happy. And, you know, I think he thought he'd took over. He thought he'd won back the World's Strongest Man title. And then I went out and came just behind Thor by less than a second. So it was a very, very close event.
It's going to be very close. 5 seconds to do it, 5 meters to go.
Well, he hasn't done it, but he has got 42.92 seconds, placing him 3rd.
So when Brian came 5th on the plane pole, I believe Lawrence Chalet came 4th and I came 3rd. So for once in his life, Lawrence Chalet actually helped me on the points, put a point in between me and Brian, made it that bit more relaxed for me. After the plane pole, I think I was 2.5 points in the lead in front of Brian and Thor. They were both joint second.
The penultimate event, one of the most dramatic in the competition's 40-year history, the max deadlift.
The deadlift is my best event. There was no doubt whatsoever in my mind that I wasn't going to win it. You know, that event was mine, regardless.
The deadlift and the beast have history. In 2015 in Melbourne, and in front of his idol Arnold Schwarzenegger, Eddie broke the world record with a massive 462 kilograms. Then, in 2016, in Leeds, at the Giants Live Deadlift World Championships, Eddie said he could lift 500 kilograms. Strength on a scale never seen before.
So going into the deadlift, I was 2.5 points in the lead over Brian and Thor. So all that depended on the event really was who came second and who came 3rd. Watching the deadlift was actually very surprising. There were some great lifters in there. I think Karan pulled 440. So did Martin Licious, so did Constantine. You know, there were so many guys that just surprised everybody with the lifts. And I think it was great. You know, it was a really great thing to see. I think it was one of the best dead-offs in the history of strongman. You know, we literally put the 10 strongest men on the planet together, and who can pull the most?
The mighty Brian Shaw, the world's strongest man. But for how much longer?
fascinated to see how this goes up. Disappointed with the plane pull. He needs to make up for things here. Yes, solid.
I think when the deadlift event was going on, I think Brian and Thor both knew that they lost the competition.
Eddie Hall still sits on top overall on points. He's the world record holder in this event.
We remember last year he was able to lift half a ton.
Extraordinary. But has he got the fitness at the end of the world's strongest man grand finals? Oh!
Never question Eddie Hall.
Wow, he's such a fast puller, Hall.
It's my event. There was no way on this planet they were going to beat me. And I think Thor, as much as he wanted to, he couldn't match me, you know, and he did try.
They're all so tight on points, but Bjornsson, to hang with the others, needs this. So desperately wants to break the duck and win this title. And look at that! That too is a brilliant lift. Just about as fast as Hall.
As the deadlift event went on, as we got higher and higher up, we got to 440 kilos. And I was getting quite frustrated because there was no clear markers what the weights were going forward. You know, was it 450, 460, 470? What were the jumps?
Could you just make it a rising bar then from now? Everyone's got to do it. And then, because if you're not giving a weight for me to gauge it on, how can I?
Sorry, Ed, I'm sorry.
How can I skip?
I can tell you.
I didn't want to pull as many pulls as I did. You know, I wanted to pull 3 pulls at most. Yeah, me personally, I would have liked to have done 420, 460, 470, say. The fact that they wouldn't, you know, set in stone the lifts meant I couldn't jump weights. I couldn't skip weights because if I missed 460, there is a chance they could have jumped to 490, 500. And even though I'm capable of doing that, there's a good chance I could injure myself and not pull it. And that could have lost me the title. In between weights on the deadlift event, there was a bit of gamemanship. You know, there was a lot of fist pumping, a lot of back patting. Especially from me to Brian and Thor. And this was partly, you know, well done, good lifting, but I think more than anything, it was an apology. It was, you know, I'm sorry, mate. This is my competition. I'm winning this.
So, Brian Shaw.
Ready, lift!
Big lift this for Shaw. He's done 1,000 pounds on bars that are higher than this. You know how much this would mean to him.
A nervous Eddie Hall there, just in case. Brian Shaw can do this with ease.
Oh, his hips are rocking about.
Well, it wasn't easy, but it was done. What have you got, Eddie? 460 kilos.
Are you ready? Lift!
This is a club he's definitely in, the 1,000-pound club, and that's why!
Look at that from the beast!
Not even a hitch. Defining moment right here. He needs this so badly to keep in the running. Oh, Habthor! Brilliant lift.
Have that, Hall. The co-leader, 460 kilos. And Brian Shaw, is this going somewhere? He's not sure he can go.
We all pulled 460. Thor and his yes men asked for 480 something, which is ridiculous because he only just pulled 460. Basically, he was trying to get me to fail the last lift so we'd come joint on the deadlift. So very snidey from the Icelandics. But luckily, the World's Strongest Man head referee was having none of it, and we just did a very normal increase of 12.5 kilo on the last weight, and I pulled it very easily, and of course Thor didn't even pull it off the floor.
It was between Thor and Eddie.
Oh, 472.5 kilos. Goodness me.
And this really has become a showdown between the two men, the likes of which the competition has never really seen.
Ready, lift!
A big jump from 460. Here we go. Hall. He's been in this territory before.
Wow.
It's remarkable. You think how many events he's done before this. When he pulled that 500 kilos, that's all he did all year. Built up for that.
And really trying to show it's not having a deep effect on him.
The two are permanently staring each other. That's who he first looked at when he stood up with it. Here we go. Can the Viking fulfill his destiny that he so much believes in?
It really is between these two guys now. 472.5 kilos.
Bjornsson's such a great stone lifter as well. If he can hang with Hall, he'll back himself every single day of the week in the stones.
Up it goes. Or does it? No. And Hall has the deadlift.
Well, that was a great event for me. It was one of the bankers. So all I've got to do is to come top 4 on the stones, and I've won World's Strongest Man. So I'm feeling mega confident. Stones is a good event for me. Could even win the stones, you know, I'm going to go all out. Honestly, the shape I'm in, I feel fit as a fiddle. I could have done that another 5 times. Max weight, I know I'm good for more than 500 kilos at the minute, but obviously we're very tired. We've done a lot of events, so that wasn't going to happen today. Perhaps a very close to 500, but a fresh 530, 540, that's how I feel. I feel mega strong on deadlift.
I was in the strongest point in my career. I'd never felt so strong, so fit, so confident. I genuinely believe that day, if they'd have put 510, 520, even 530 on that bar, I'd have pulled it, no problem. I remember standing, watching. Brian had pulled out at this point, which is very surprising. I think he had a bit of a tweak in his hamstring. But then 4 went and tried it and failed. And it was at that point, you know, I'd won the deadlift event and I was 4 points in the lead over everybody else. It was that point I knew, no matter what, I'd won the World's Strongest Man.
Between Eddie and the title, one last task. The defining event of World's Strongest Man. The Atlas Stones.
Going into the Atlas Stones, I was probably one of the most confident, but at the same time, one of the most worried men on the planet. Because so much can go right and so much can go wrong in this event. So I remember times when Derek Poundstone lost to Mariusz Podnocki because he dropped an Atlas Stone. And then when we were in LA, I witnessed Brian Shaw stumble on a stone because something went on in the background, and Sadrunas beaten by half a point. So a lot can go wrong with the Atlas Stones. Such small margins, even half a point, you can lose the title. There's no room for error with the Atlas Stones. Watching the other guys go was very nerve-wracking. You know, I knew all I had to do was come the top 4 in the stones and I won World's Strongest Man. But there were some guys throwing up 5 stones mega quick, especially 4. You know, I think he did it in very low 20 seconds, which was phenomenal. For me to do that after a 2-week contest, after I've just deadlifted over 1,000 pounds, you know, it was risky. You know, a lot could go wrong. I could pull a hamstring, I could detach a bicep. You know, there was a lot to go wrong, so there's a lot of pressure on me. When I was walking out for the Atlas Stone event with Brian, at this point I have never been so shaky in my life. You know, my heart was in my mouth. I could feel my heartbeat going probably 200 beats per minute. I've never had a feeling like it. It was like being in a car crash, having no control over the event, you know. I'm almost one of the people in the crowd watching myself about to make a mistake. You know, you can't help but think nothing but negative in scenarios like this, but you've just got to zone out, get your tacky on, pick that stone up and slam it on that platform as quick as you can.
Look at this. Eddie Hall attacking this event. Straight down and up.
I knew that all I had to do was put a fast 4 stones up, put 4 stones up mega quick. which I think I did it faster than 4 did. When I did the 4 stone, I went to do the 5th, slipped. Wasn't really that bothered because I was pretty sure I'd done 4 stones pretty quick enough to win. And then I looked at the referees, I looked at the crowd. I was like, have I won? You know, can somebody tell me, have I done it? Nobody could tell me. Nobody could say, yes, you've won. And then all I heard is, you've got 5 seconds left. And I'm like, what? So there's nothing else I could do but grip that 5th stone, put it on my lap, and then put it on the platform, just to solidify the title. I didn't need it, but I did it. Once I put that 5th stone up, I was looking to the crowd, the whistle went. It must have been no more than 5 to 10 seconds before someone in the crowd sort of said, like, you've done it, you've done it. To me, that felt like an eternity. It felt like I was standing there for half an hour because I was just wanting someone to say, you've won World's Strongest Man. I remember doing the event and winning the World's Strongest Man, walking back to the tent, and then the first person to come and properly congratulate me was Bill Kazmaier. You know, one of my childhood heroes, somebody who's won the World's Strongest Man himself. And the first thing he said to me was to shoot my hand, and he said, welcome to the club. Numerous people coming up to me, congratulating me. The ones I remember were Bill Kazmaier and also Big Z. You know, not much was said. Big Z is a man of few words, but it was more of a tap on the back, a quick handshake, and a nod. And that, from Big Z, is probably more than a lot of people would ever get. To be the world's strongest man, to me, is the ultimate title. It is the #1. There's no better accolade out there. You know, you've got the fastest man on the planet, the smartest man on the planet, and then you've got the strongest man on the planet, the most alpha male title you can have. From a very early age, from childhood, always wanted it, always dreamt of it. And to finally achieve it, it's just total euphoria. No better feeling. You are literally on top of the world.
After a long, hard journey, 10 years after his first strongman event, a destination was reached. Eddie Hall, a 29-year-old Englishman from Stoke-on-Trent, crowned in Botswana, the world's strongest man 2017.
I don't want to be an average guy. I want to be extraordinary. And to do that, you've got to do extraordinary things. You've got to push the body to the human limits. You've got to go beyond what you think's capable. You've got to push yourself through pain barriers. You've got to push yourself through all sorts of mental barriers as well. You take yourself to places you wouldn't thought people could go to. You've got to want it. You've got to need it. And for me, that's exactly it. I just needed that. I needed that title in my life, and I'd do anything to achieve it. Absolutely anything. Why should I walk around like Clark Kent all year round? You know? Everybody wants to be Superman, and that's why we do it. I don't want to be Clark Kent. I want to be Superman.